Mr. Ben Allen and Ms. Sandra Fluke. Mr. Allen won the toss, so he will give his opening 2-minute statement first. Mr. Allen.
Well, thank you so much, everybody.
Sit down, please.
Oh.
Sorry.
I would have done the same thing.
Jeez. All right. Well, there we are. Okay, well, I was going to thank the league, and I still will. The league provides a very important service to the community with unstinting sense of fairness and decorum. And I just want to thank the league for pulling this together and for doing all the things that you do to help inform voters. I'm Ben Allen. I'm the local guy in this race. 12th grade. My parents are both educators. My dad has spent his career as a professor at UCLA. My mom is a public school teacher. I ended up spending some time working on the East Coast, but came back to California, went to law school at UC Berkeley, had the chance to serve as the one student member of the University of California's Board of Regents, and there I was able to work on issues relating to sustainability, on public interest loan forgiveness in the professional schools, fiscal management, and similar matters at the university. I came back home. I've been working in my own hometown, serving on the school board now for 2 terms, helping to lead the district through very difficult times as we faced economic deprivation and a great deal of cuts. I've also been a lawyer. I also teach education law and policy at UCLA Law School. I'm someone who's passionate about public education, obviously, like so many people in this extraordinary district. I care a great deal about environmental protection. I care a great deal about transportation infrastructure and improving the way we get around in this city. And I also care a great deal about jobs in the economy and doing what we can to preserve and protect those critical industries that make such a difference, everything from small business to aerospace to the TV and film industry, tourism, and the growing tech sector. I'm so proud to have the endorsements of people from across the political spectrum, folks like Zev Yaroslavsky and Henry Waxman, but also folks like Don Knabe and Richard Reardon, a great range of leaders who have played such an important role in making our communities better. It would be such an honor to have the opportunity to serve this entire district in the state Senate, and I look forward to a robust forum, and I will make sure to stay seated. Thank you.
Ms. Fluke.
Thank you so much, and just to make everything fair, I would have tried to stand up as well. So if you're going to dock Ben for that, you should hold me accountable as well. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much to the organizers as well as to all of you for coming out and participating in our democracy and looking for ways to make your voices heard in this process. That's what I've defined my entire career around, is fighting to ensure that community voices are heard in our government and that those who are so often silenced have a voice in this process. I've spent the last 10 years working on state legislation on policy on a broad range of issues, everything from early childhood education and higher education affordability to public assistance to criminal justice reform to, of course, the area that I'm probably best known for, which is gender equality and reproductive justice work. I've also spent parts of my career representing directly individuals, victims of domestic violence and survivors of human trafficking, of sex and labor trafficking. And it's that one-on-one direct representation and understanding of individuals' experience that I hope to translate into representing each one of you as constituents during my time in the state Senate. Now, when I think about what are the messages that this community really wants to make sure are heard in Sacramento, my priorities are to focus on environmental protection as well as progress. This district is an incredible district that needs to be protected, and we need to use these opportunities to invest in job creation through environmental programs. I'm also focused on investment in early childhood ed and affordability of higher education, but my top priority is campaign finance reform to make sure that our voices are the ones heard in the political process. I'm proud to be endorsed by leaders such as Representative Janice Hahn, as well as South Bay community members and elected officials like Redondo Beach City Council member Steve Samarco, and a few others that I'll share when I have more time. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will go with our first question to Mr. Allen. And the question is, It seems that people have the same ideas for this office as the questions we asked last time. Do you favor campaign finance reform? And if yes, what would you change?
I absolutely do. I think that the experience for both of us has been really extraordinary when you see how much money it takes to run an effective campaign at this level, and I think it has the money chase really does have a corrosive impact on the health of our democracy and citizenship. So I do absolutely favor campaign finance reform. I would like to see us do more to improve immediate disclosure laws. I also think that we need to do much more to make it so that the legislators cannot raise money in the last 100 days of the legislative session. That's when so much of the bills are getting passed. If anyone knows about the recent scandal involving Senator Leland Yee, I think it was referred to earlier, Senator Yee was taking money from special interest groups, from lobbyists, literally 24 hours before going and voting on their bills on the floor of the legislature. That is currently allowed under state finance, campaign finance law. It is extraordinary. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit that needs to be addressed. On the longer term, I certainly support some public financing for campaigns. I think it's important to help make the system a little cleaner. I'm proud of the fact that my money has come from within the state and that I'm raising money from Californians, but it has proven to be a challenge to raise money. It's a big problem, and it's something I certainly want to work on, trying to clean up the system. I also want to just mention that I support some of the matching grant programs. I think that Sandra will talk about, I'm sure, when she gives her answer. So I'm a supporter of campaign finance reform. Yep.
Thank you. Ms. Fluke.
You can tell that Ben and I have done this so much that we know a lot about what each other is going to discuss. So, as I said, campaign finance is my #1 priority. I think in Sacramento, there are a number of things that we can do that we can't actually achieve at the federal level. Things like requiring greater disclosure requirements from corporations and from super PACs, so that we're not ending up with things like Americans for Apple Pie on our campaign mail, but we really understand who's funding campaigns and who's behind candidates. I'm also in favor of a matching grants program, which give candidates an incentive to fund their campaigns in the way that I have. So saying to a candidate, if you seek out small dollar donations, we'll match those donations dollar for dollar, of course, up to a certain limit. Now, I'm not only talking about that as something that I'm going to accomplish in Sacramento, that's how I'm conducting my campaign now. I'm very proud that not only has the majority of my campaign funding come from within California, but it has come nearly universally from individual contributors. We've had now over 4,500 individuals contribute, and our average donation is less than $250. Now, that's not the easy way to fund a campaign. That takes an incredible amount of work, but that's the right way to fund a campaign, and it's the way that I am living my values and keeping myself accountable to this community and the individual interests that I seek to represent in Sacramento.
Thank you. Now to our next question. What will you do to help our economy grow? And Ms. Fluke, you're first on this one.
You know, when I think about where we are in the process of our recovery, my first priority is to figure out how do we get cash and funding back in the pockets of middle class and working families who will spend it immediately in our economy. Because all of the studies show that that's the way to continue to grow our economy, to keep things moving forward. So it's things like increasing the minimum wage and making sure that we get to a living wage, which I've been proud to work with the LA City Council and a number of other organizations to push for that at various levels. But it's also things like linking UCLA and our public higher education institutions with career development opportunities in the district, with industries that need growth. So things like Silicon Beach. I, of course, am a proud supporter of the now successfully enacted film tax credit, and I'm looking for ways to encourage small business growth throughout the district, not just in one sector, but in all of the areas that we need jobs. And I'm very proud to have the support of the California Small Business Association, as well as a number of local community business owners as a result.
Thank you. Mr. Allen.
There's a lot of things that we need to do to get our economy moving again. I think Sandra brought up a number of them. I would also want to add a few things like infrastructural development. It really is extraordinary how far behind Los Angeles is with regards to the rest of the country and a lot of the rest of the civilized world when it comes to the way we get around, the way we pipe around our water. We've had 2 enormous water main bursts in the northern portion of this Senate district that have caused an extraordinary amount of damage, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that we've deferred maintenance for so long on our water infrastructure that we're now paying a lot more than it would have cost to just been a little bit better about maintaining those lines. The same thing when it comes to our transportation infrastructure. It's extraordinary that we have such a poor transportation infrastructure, both on the rail side, but also right the way over to our cars. I mean, in the end of the day, the Angelenos spend more than double the average American in car repair because of the poor state of our roads in this city. So infrastructure development is some way that I think we can get the economy moving, creating a lot of good new jobs while also improving quality of life. But I also want to mention a couple critical, I think talking to business, working with business. I'm a real proud member of the Santa Monica Chamber of Commerce. I've been involved with the local chamber for a long time. I know down here in the South Bay, the aerospace industry is extraordinarily important. One of the responsibilities of local elected officials, I think, is to continue to make the case for the importance of the presence of the LA Air Force Base. There's such a follow-on impact for the rest of the economy here in the South Bay. It's not just in science and technology, it's also in film and, because I've been to the Avatar studios in Manhattan Beach and have seen how there's a lot of really interesting interplay between the science folks and the entertainment folks there. So I got to stop. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Our next question will, let's see, Ms. Fluke took it first last time, so Mr. Allen will take it first this time. What experience do you have working to find common ground with the opposite side of the aisle?
Thank you for the question. Quite a bit, actually. When I was young, I was a student member of the University of California's Board of Regents. So I was the youngest, the poorest, the least enfranchised of all the members of that board, which actually involves a pretty well-to-do and oftentimes very successful and very conservative group of members. And I was able to work with a lot of those members, many of whom were considerably more conservative than I, to get a couple critical pieces of legislation passed that I think ended up strengthening the university in all sorts of different ways. I had to do my homework, I had to go sit down, I had to listen to the concerns that a lot of these regents had, and I had to go craft legislation in a way that would both win them over and also meet the goals that I was trying to achieve. Since I've been on the school board, it's been the same story. We've been facing tremendous challenges in terms of budget. And so I was the guy, as we were trying to find new ways to bring in some revenues, to go out and meet with the business community, meet with our local Republicans, meet with police and fire departments to get them on board a couple of revenue measures that we were able to pass to bring in some new money into the school system. So that was a real act of bipartisanship. I think it's one of the reasons why I've been able to collect so many strong endorsements from both sides of the aisle. Great Republican leaders, lots and lots of Republican local elected officials, all the ones that Almar Succi mentioned, and about 20 more who represent portions of the South Bay, and then lots and lots of great Democratic endorsements as well.
Thank you. Ms. Fluke.
Thank you so much. I think one of the things that I'm probably best known for is being in the public spotlight for taking on Mr. Limbaugh and some conservative commentators and some Republican members of Congress. Now, I'm really proud that I stood my ground and that I fought for the health care access of many of the women in this room, but I'm actually very concerned about the types of divisive language that we see increasing in our civic conversations and in our national debate. And that was part of what I was speaking out against as well, is that we shouldn't be lowering ourselves to those kinds of standards. Now, I actually grew up in a really conservative community, so I probably understand better than a typical person how to reach across the aisle, how to explain why the progressive policies that I fight for make good economic sense and are not out of line with the values of folks from a different part of our political spectrum. And that's why when I have been fighting for things like reproductive justice bills, I was the one who helped to bring on board Catholic leaders when we could find common ground. And when I was fighting for domestic workers and improved employee protections, I personally met went and met with every Republican leader of the caucus that we were lobbying, because I know how important it is to find bipartisanship when you can and build those connections to actually be able to make progress. And I'm proud to have the support of a number of former Republican state senators as well as organizational and community leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Now on to our next question. What should we do about climate change? And I guess Ms. Fluke is first this time.
And just to be clear, that's a minute and a half on what to do about climate change? You got it. Okay, I stated at the opening that environmental protection and progress is one of my top priorities. And that's because I really do believe that helping to prevent further damage around climate change and global warming is the obligation of my generation to take on this challenge. Now, California has been such a leader on this issue, but we need to continue to move forward. And that's why I'm committed to doing things like investing in public transit projects that will reduce the use of carbon fuels, as well as investing in other types of clean energy like solar energy and improving our electrical grid. There is an enormous amount of progress to be made here, and I'm really excited to actually be able to partner with private enterprise to find the kinds of solutions that it's going to take to be able to solve global climate change in a minute and a half.
Thank you. Mr. Allen.
This is something that I think concerns both of us, and I'll mention that both of us actually have, both the Sierra Club and the California League Conservation Voters did a dual endorsement of the two of us, because I think, yeah, I knew you wanted to mention that, because I think they realized that both of us were concerned about this issue. I've actually been endorsed by Fran Pavley, who is the author of AB 32, which was the bill that put California at the front of the conversation with regards to climate change. I think, kind of building, I want to wed the question with the earlier question about how to get our economy moving again. It's interesting. Certain industries certainly have been leaving, and we need to figure out ways to keep, get them to stay. And it's one of the reasons why I care a lot about trying to keep aerospace here and TV and film production and our hospitality industry. But there's also some industries that have moved into the state because of some of the incentives and some of the work that's undergone with regards to trying to attract new businesses. So a lot of clean energy and green energy and green technology jobs have actually been grown in California because of some of the incentives that have been put in place. A lot of new factories that have opened up in Palmdale, certain manufacturing plants actually right here in the South Bay in El Segundo and Hawthorne and elsewhere that have taken advantage of some of the really robust programs that the state has put in place to try to encourage the development of that technology in partnership with the universities, et cetera. So I'd like to help to expand upon that sort of work. I think there's a lot of ways to grow our local economy while doing right by our environment.
Thank you. All right. Our next question. It's two parts. What are your views about education funding of preschools, and what are your views about education funding for colleges?
Well, both obviously critically important. Now, let's talk about preschools first. I think the reason why preschools have been an area of kind of traditional underinvestment. A lot of people don't realize how incredibly important early childhood education is to the long-term growth and development of a kid. If you look at the achievement gap and you look at some of the long-term challenges we face as a nation in the education space, those great challenges, those seeds are sown in the earliest years. And I've actually been involved with an initiative in my own town, a Cradle to Career initiative that's focused on trying to create a much more robust, truly integrated and accessible early childhood infrastructure that families from all different backgrounds want to be a part of. One of the problems is early childhood is actually one of the most segregated parts of our entire educational spectrum. The wealthiest folks are able to afford good preschool programs. The poorest folks do have some government programs in place. The middle class is totally squeezed. It's incredibly expensive to send your kid to a decent preschool program, and there's not enough in place. I got down to 30 seconds, so I should talk about public higher education. Obviously, having served on the Board of Regents. I teach at UCLA Law School. I have taught in the community college system as well. It's an area of real import. I care a lot about career technical pathways and making sure that that the community colleges stay robust. Not every person needs to go get a bachelor's degree necessarily to get good jobs, and and there's a lot of jobs that don't require a college degree, but that our community college system can and should be doing more to help train and prepare. But I do think it's a real shame how much we've underinvested in the University of California, and I have to stop, so I'm sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Fluke?
Thank you so much. I'll begin with what may seem like a little bit of a tangent, but I'll explain. I actually began my career working on evaluation of services to the community and essentially looking at what are the most efficient ways to use public money to deliver social services to the community. And that's why I believe so wholeheartedly in both investment in early childhood education and in public higher education affordability, and it's why those are some of my top priorities. Because early childhood ed is the most efficient place to spend money on educational dollars. It makes every other educational investment pay increased dividends. It's how we can close the learning and achievement gap, and it has an impact for the entire family, not just for the child, because it allows caretakers and parents to go back out into the workforce and contribute to the economy and spur things forward for the rest of us. Now, at the higher education level, the fact that right now for the Cal State system, we're turning away 30,000 qualified California high school graduates because of lack of space and lack of funding means that we're cutting off all of the rest of us from their ability. And in a few short years, we're going to be short on college graduates in California as a result. So I'm proud to have the support of the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges, as well as the Faculty Guild at a number of the colleges within the district, because I've worked on higher education affordability with Young Invincibles, as well as early childhood ed with Raising California Together. And I'm proud to have delivered on student loan reform, as well as increasing the investment in our state budget this year on early childhood ed.
Thank you. Now, this is going to have to be our last question. What is your position on fracking? And Ms. Fluke, you go first.
I'm firmly opposed to fracking, and I believe that we need an immediate moratorium on fracking as well as other dangerous drilling and extraction practices. I am very firmly in favor of this position for a number of reasons. We know that there are health consequences for our communities, and unfortunately, those health consequences are also heavily impacted on the poorest communities. And we know that this increases the potential for earthquakes and seismic consequences, and we certainly don't need to increase the risk of seismic damage in this region. But one of the things that I think is even becoming increasingly clear to all of us is how this connects to our drought and our water crisis throughout California, because we are using so much water in the process of fracking, and it is polluted with such toxic and frankly mostly unknown chemicals that we can never again have access to that water. We're also polluting our groundwater source, and this is not the type of energy production that we should be relying upon in California. We should be leading the way forward by investing in clean energy and creating jobs in that sector, not putting our citizens at risk for an old school energy source.
Thank you. Mr. Allen.
Yeah, I generally agree with Sandra. I shouldn't waste people's time, so that's my feeling.
Okay. All right, now we can go to our closing statements. So Mr. Allen started first, so Ms. Fluke, you start first now.
I'll close by touching upon what I began with, which is that I have devoted my career to ensuring that community voices are heard within our government processes. So whether that's been my work helping to pass legislation around employee protections or public assistance or women's health care, what's always been at the core for me is making sure that I'm amplifying your voices. And that's what'll be at the core for me in Sacramento. I'm very proud to be conducting my campaign in a way that gives me the independence to be able to fight for all of you when I get there. And I'm very proud of the support that I've earned throughout this process as a result. You know, I'll reiterate that my top priorities are environmental protection, and that's why I'm so proud to have the endorsements of the Sierra Club and the California League of Conservation voters, as as well as the former chair of the White House Council on Environmental Quality and the current chair of the California Air Resources Board. I'm also focused on education affordability and early childhood ed, and I'm very proud to have a number of educational leaders who've endorsed my campaign. But my top priority is campaign finance reform, and that's how you can look at my campaign and know that when I get to Sacramento, I'll be fighting for all of you. I'm very proud again to have the support of the Torrance and Beach Cities Democratic clubs as well as the Progressive Democratic clubs, every South Bay Dem club that has endorsed, and I hope to have the support and vote of each and every one of you on Election Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Allen.
Well, thank you so much, and I'll make sure to stay seated this time. I think, you've heard two candidates who do share a lot of the same values. I think that some of the core differences between us are the fact that I'm from this district. I was born and raised here. My family's here. I've got deep roots in this district and deep roots in this community. I'm also someone who has got some substantial experience in the private sector, and I've spent time working with business clients, hearing their concerns, and one of the things I've been active with the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm concerned about the importance of economic development and economic vitality, and I know the role that business plays in trying to create jobs for people in our region. I'm also someone who's done some of the same sort of advocacy work from the outside that Sandra has done, but I've also worked from within government. I've been a staffer on Capitol Hill. I worked for 2 years as a member of the University of California's Board of Regents at the state level. I've served in the trenches on a local school board, which is not glamorous, not easy work, trying to help protect our school system during an incredibly difficult time economically. And so I've got a track record of success, building coalitions, winning people over, casting difficult votes over and over and over again, balancing 7 budgets, making some of the tough decisions to try to stretch every single taxpayer dollar to make sure that programs are strong, that we're doing what the taxpayers and the citizens ask us to do to take care of kids and make sure that their educations are strong. I think this is the reason why I've been endorsed by over 150 local elected officials, most of the mayors in the district, most of the city council members in the district. I've been endorsed by the mayors of Hermosa, Manhattan, Redondo Beach, Palos Verdes Estates, Rancho Palos Verdes, Rolling Hills Estates, the beautiful city of Avalon, Santa Monica, Beverly Hills. People who are in the trenches helping to make government work on the local level right here in our community every single day. Those folks have stood by me because they know that I've got the track record, I've got the roots, I've got the experience of actually making government work for people here locally. And that's the reason why I think I'm the strongest candidate for this race. Thank you so much. Ben Allen.
Thank you. Let's give them a big hand.